I hear you.
Well, thank you all for being here tonight. And sometimes you got to hit mute. Wanted to just take a second. This is a special call. If you think about it, next Sunday, Black Friday will have hit and Thanksgiving will have hit. And there's all these familial opportunities, these friend opportunities, as there's more people coming into life now. And then it also leads to those Christmas parties that you end up having, and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and Thanksgiving, and combine all these different events that take place, work, Christmas parties, things like that. There's so many events that happen this season. But for me, this is the new year for me. When I first got my start in this business almost 20 years ago, it was in the middle of November towards the end. It was the same time, the same smell outside, the same temperature, the same climate. I remember hearing that when I got into real estate, same time frame of the year. When I got into the company I was in the longest, my sign up date was December 5th. So the two companies that I did, the real estate, it's as if this is the time that for me has been when I got started. So it's like my new year. It's the beginning for me year over year. And I see it as a golden opportunity. When I got into real estate and I got into networking, all I ever heard from people was that it slowed down in the winter and it would ebb and flow and there'd be a contraction in the winter. They said that about real estate. Yet every time I would try to ski, that was when I would get so busy. I'm like, I'm trying to ski here. Why does the work keep coming? There's this saying in real estate: if you want to sell a house, go on vacation. Your phone starts ringing like crazy when you go on vacation. And so I've observed that pattern, and it led me to believe this thing because in the current market right now in real estate, I'm in these groups on social media and all I hear is negativity about the interest rate, negativity about statistics, and people trying to validate a case for their beliefs. And I'm over here slaying it. I've got multiple things going. We're busy. I got appointments. And it's like, because of my mindset, because for me, this is my new year. This is the recommitment. This is that my contraction where I internalize and I ask myself the tough questions. This is where I'm like, Kevin, you've been working out for a year and you kind of look flabby still. And you don't really look bigger, you don't look thinner, you don't look better, but you did the gym thing like 4 or 5 days a week. You ate better than you usually eat, but you don't look better. Your clothes don't fit better. Your weight's still the same. And it's like, oh, you should reassess. So I got on Peyton's program, regardless to fitness, and that's really exciting. I'm like, I look at this business and I say to myself, like, hey, this is like the recommitment. It's been in my psychology. It's been in my conversation in the last week or two, in that conversation where I'm thinking to myself, like, people are, I bring the greens up, but I say, yeah, we're getting ready to launch. We're at the beginning. And I mean, yeah, it might have been a year that but as things are coming together and coming to fruition, it almost feels like I'm relaunching and re-beginning this again. And all the conversation in my mind, in my heart, is all in relationship to that. I'm watching in my family the changing of the guard. I'm watching the seasonal change of life. I'm seeing the shifts in all of it. And I'm like, okay, we're like about there. And so for me tonight, I'm like, okay, I bet I could get this done in like 5, 6 minutes. Because to me, I'm like, okay, right now, if I listen to other people, I would be not successful in business, not successful in fitness, and I would have negativity towards my side hustle, which is the opportunity to make a residual income that's incredibly large and vast by helping people get what they should be getting every day in their bodies. And if I listen to the negativity of other people, I get their result. And I don't think I'd want that result. And as we're going into like a bunch of activity times, a bunch of things where like there's like the festival of trees, there's like a Christmas thing, there's like a play, there's all kinds of things that take place in this season that puts me around more people. There's more things I'm invited to, more places I go where there's conversation to be had. And so for me, I'm looking at that and I know clarity is power. And I want to be powerful, effective, and have that clarity so that I'm enthusiastic and my mindset is right. So I'm not swaying to the beliefs and opinions of others as they begin their off season. This is the opposite of me. Like you go against the crowd and you get the result they don't have. the crowd is lost. Quit following them. And so I just thought it was ironic and ceremonial. Also, it's like something synchronistic that this week would be all of these things culminating, where I think to myself, the only other person I know that has the same time frame is Dan Putnam, because Dan's new year starts around Thanksgiving. He doesn't do Thanksgiving. He doesn't do Black Friday. He starts his year off, and then he's ahead of everybody else with their New Year's goals and resolutions. I find myself oddly in the same position now, and I ask myself the question, Kevin, what do you want out of Against All Odds? Kevin, what do you want out of the greens as a product? Kevin, what do you want out of this call? What do you want out of the next year? And it's like, what do you want out of the season as it comes in? And I'm like, okay, I have spent the last 6 months sharing hundreds of sticks of greens with people. I've had people ask to be customers. I've been corralling people into the customer side. But it isn't until recently where I'm like, all right, I think we have enough people queued up for the business part. I think it's time to launch. And I go back to the video that I watched of Holton Buggs explaining how he launched his business, and it was his mindset. He was the core nucleus of the explosion that was his group, and the way he built. I mean, he had calls every hour. He would get somebody to get 10 people right then. And then when that call was done, if they were interested, they went and got more people. And he created a frenzy by going sense of urgency so fast, so quick to create the duplication. And they were feeding it into meetings and things. And I'm like, the mental and emotional commitment that it takes for that kind of resolve. And I'm like, yeah, well, we've been going at this for a year. We haven't missed any calls. Well, we've been doing everything that we're supposed to do, except for not doing it in the correct sequence, in the correct pace, with the correct mindset. So it's like the same exact thing that's demonstrative to me of my working out. It's like, I don't ever miss. The muscle groups get hit, they get sore. I'm getting stronger. I look exactly the same. I don't feel much better. I don't feel much worse. It's just kind of similar in that way. And I'm like, I'm doing the exact same thing in business. I'm doing the exact same thing in skiing, doing the exact same thing in snowboarding, doing the exact same thing as a father, doing the exact same thing in my professional life. And I look at that and I'm like, okay, duly noted. I'm in the assessment part. So for me on a personal level, what I will be doing for myself moving forward is pulling out my notebook, starting off a new year and beginning those resolutions, formulating my game plan. Because for me, it's time for me to start again. This is my new year. And so that's what I had tonight. I've been in that soul searching mode. I feel like that'll be the coming weeks. But as you go and approach Thanksgiving this weekend, and you're going to be around a bunch of people, it's an incredibly phenomenal time to practice the greens. It's a really great time to sneak some greens into people's bodies before they fill up on a bunch of things that'll make them tired. It's a great time to have that conversation. As we go into the holidays, it's like sugar holiday after sugar holiday after sugar holiday. So gathering customers as a conversation piece is just so simple. Gathering the business part by explaining the customer part is equally simple. So I would challenge you this week to get going on some of that, and I'm going to pass it off to Peyton. Thank you guys for listening.
Yeah, man, that's awesome, Kevin. And it's interesting what you were describing. Like, I feel like we, looking back for a long time now, we've been friends since 2008, so 15 years. And 2009, I think right around that time is when we started kind of doing the notebook, which, we would do these notebooks with this basically intention setting exercise to kind of set up, these future moments and timeframes, 3 months, 1 year, 5 years. And, in that process, I was actually just making a cup of tea here before we got started. And you know how on the end of the tea, like they have little sayings, right? And the end of this tea bag, it says, the difference between a flower and a weed is a judgment. And so it got me thinking, as Kevin was kind of describing it, and it's like to build anything really into something that is, let's say, impressive. And what makes something impressive? In my opinion, when you generate a result that is not common, that's when you generally are impressive, right? If there's a professional athlete that is accomplishing something, a level of play, that's outside of the ordinary, then people naturally are impressed by them. If there's somebody that's created levels of wealth that's outside of the ordinary, that's generally impressive. If there's somebody that, you know, is contributing or serving in their family in a way that's above and beyond, that's generally impressive. And the thing that I keep thinking about is that dreams, most of our dreams require us to start doing impressive things. And what is it going to take to do something impressive, whether it's in any enterprise or whether it's in this enterprise, to create impressive health, right? To age gracefully, all of those things. It requires, in my opinion, three things. The first thing is mindset, like Kevin was talking about. The second thing is skills. And the third thing is action. And so I was just going to kind of go through this checklist really quickly, because the first step is basically to imagine a dream for yourself. And that could be improved finance. It could be more freedom. It could be a padded retirement. It could be an improved body. It could be richer relationships, whatever the case may be. Something in the future that has not yet happened, that we believe that, in the having of that thing, we would be satisfied. We would be excited. We would be enthusiastic, right? It meets a vision of what we want. And now the reason I bring up the thing about the T is because the mindset basically is, the difference between a flower and a weed is a judgment, but the difference between us generating that result is the judgment that we can, right? Because our mind will ultimately harvest the flower if we allow it to. So taking the time to start to investigate those self-serving or self-defeating thoughts that we might have, how often are we finding ourselves saying things like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if it's going to work for me, or even some of the more innocent ones that a lot of times that happen is like you get cut off in traffic and you're like, of course, or, somebody, quits your team and goes to another business or something like that. And you're like, yeah, expected that, right? And it's like all of these little things are basically weeds that exist in our brain. Now, to be a leader, to lead people in any direction, there's two things that we have to do. We have to understand at a personal level what it is that we're going to do. And then we have to do that. And then we have to help other people do the same thing. So last week we were talking about how as soon as you make a decision and start to go in a certain direction, people tend to fall in line very quickly. And so as we're setting those goals yet again for this coming year, and as we're thinking about those things, it's really inside of these three categories that I'm going to spend some time. And each and every person that's listening to this, whether this is on the call live or whether this is in the replay, it's that, put some energy into thinking about, like, where do I need to be 1% better? Because that's a huge thing that we often forget about. Is the Slight Edge basically describes that if we can learn to be 1% better every single day, in 1 year, we will be 300% better, 365% better, which is 3 times as good as we are right now. So imagine that if you started today and 1 year from right now, you were 3 times as fit as you are right now. What would that be like? If you started today and in 1 year from now, you were 3 times as wealthy as you are right now, whatever that looks like to you, what would that be like? If your relationships were 3 times better, what would that be like to you? Now, you can feel within yourself, if you allow your imagination to start to identify with those things, you'll feel a little buzz in your stomach, or you'll feel, some type of hope. Not everybody responds to the same things, but if you start to play through that enough, if you look at relationships, experiences, contribution, giving, wealth, health, so forth and so on, there's something or multiple things that probably create a spark. That spark is the potential for a flower, right? And the downside of that, of course, is the potential for the weed, which is like, I don't know if it's, the company, I don't know if it's the website, I don't know if it's the problem, so forth and so on. So number one, first pillar, of course, is mindset. What are the things that we know that we can do on a daily and weekly basis to improve the quality of our mindset? We can, of course, listen to good information. We can read, we can meditate, we can write in our journals, we can look at incantations, we can look for ways to reinforce positive things into our psyche that then become the pillar that now we go out and we start to learn the skills. So real quickly, I believe that one of the reasons why people don't wind up having the success that they want to in this or any type of entrepreneurial business, so a business that's basically not just working for somebody else, is because they never take the time to actually improve the quality of their skills. And the reason that most people don't take the time to improve the quality of their skills is because they're not clear about what exact skills that they're going to have to do. Why do people get so good at the jobs that they do on a daily and weekly basis? And it's because of the way that those jobs are designed. They have a very clear expectation of what to do, when to do it, how much of it to do, and there's a very clear reward and consequence structure. At most jobs, if you do a good job, you'll get praise. And if you do a bad job, you'll get fired. And if you get fired, you won't have any money and everything. You know, it's very easy for the human brain to basically associate that with negativity. But yet in our business, in this business, or any type of business that you're trying to build on your own, there is neither a clear path of exactly what it is that we need to learn how to do on a daily and weekly, even hourly basis. And if you don't do it, there's really not any consequence. We're all here to sing Kumbaya a week later and pat each other on the back, right? Which is both good and both bad. So what are the key gateway skills that each and every single one of us want to have, whether we want to make $1,000 a month or $10,000 a month or $100,000 a month? Now, to go to the big money, you might have to add a couple of skills to this, but to get into the money, you absolutely need to know a couple of these. The first one, of course, is learning how to make a compelling invitation. So what I always think about is I say, if you are feeling rusty on your invitations, how many times are you practicing the invite? Are you practicing it one time before you send the text? Or are you practicing it one time before you make the call? Or are you practicing it 10 times out loud? And on top of that, you can practice in private, and you can also get promoted in public for what you practice in private. So Kevin is very effective at talking to people because he just tries again over and over and over and over and over again with people. And people have always said, well, he has the gift of gab, or he'll talk to anybody, or so forth and so on. Now, I've been around Kevin enough to know that it doesn't get any less uncomfortable every time that he decides to roll in to talk to a new person, or I see the switch happen where he decides to transition from a, hey, how's your day going, on a scale of 1 to 10, you know, oh, a 6, what can we do to make it better? And I'm like, oh, here comes the greens, like loading, right? And I'm like, but he's done it so many times that whether or not we know what's going to happen next, whether or not we know what that's going to feel like, it is really pretty cool, calm, and collected to the average person. And they're like, man, this guy must go around and do this all the time. So the first one's making a compelling invitation. The second thing is how to make the next connection, right? So you can make a great invitation to somebody. How many people, by show of hands, if we were in front of a big audience right now, and I'm going to raise my hand the highest, but how many people have had a conversation with somebody about the greens, or about making money online, or about starting something on the side, and simply never followed up again? And we do this for a number of different reasons, but of course, I've done this, you've done this, you'll probably do this again. And so a lot of times it's not because we're not excited, but now the actual feeling of enthusiasm dies down and you don't know what to do next. And so learning how to make a good connection, you know, with somebody to introduce them to the next thing, whether that's a coupon code, whether that's a video, whether that's them having a conversation with somebody in your support team, is a huge part of making sure that you can push the business forward. So it's like, if you start to look at this and say, hey, I want to build this big over the next year, the first thing you have to do is find people to talk to. The second thing you have to do is make compelling invitations. The third thing is that you have to connect them to a piece of information so that they can make a decision. And then it's a matter of getting people started. Okay. So I always say, you know, what's the difference between the people that dabble and the people that become great? It's focus, for sure. It's consistency, for sure. But it's so interesting to me. I actually had an experience this week where I was in a skills workshop, and I was amongst a bunch of professionals who have been in their vocation for many, many, many years. And when asked to practice the skills together amongst professionals, not even with real customers, the awkwardness, the stumbling of the words, the self-consciousness, the pettiness, all of these different things came up. And I said, look, this is not a new feeling for people. And the only way that we can overcome it, of course, is by repetition and repetition and repetition and repetition. So when you're looking at your business, you kind of have to take a second and you have to evaluate. You have to say, how good am I in each of these areas? And then there's more resources available to us than we can possibly imagine. YouTube videos, books, scripts, coaches, you know, our own personal experiences, so forth and so on, to basically learn those 3 steps. And then the key number 4 is, of course, you have to help somebody be able to take action in the business, because only on your own efforts, you will not be able to create the empire that you want to create. But by your efforts and the ability to help other people get started and do the same thing, you'll be able to create leverage, and you'll be able to grow and be able to do the you know, everything that it is that we want to actually create. But if you can't get through steps 1 and 2 and 3, which is, of course, finding people to talk to, making a compelling invitation, and getting them connected so they can make a decision, you'll never have number 4, which is a team to teach other people how to do the same thing. So First is the mindset, cultivate the garden. Second is the skills. And the third thing is the actions, making the decision. This is a wonderful thing. And I'll finish with this so that we can be out of here and be done. So each and every one of us have probably read, or we've probably heard the analogy of the penny doubled every single day. They, you know, the story goes basically that a father on his deathbed tells his two twin sons, he says, hey, you guys can either take money up front or you can have a penny doubled every day. One kid takes the money up front, runs out of money. The other brother basically takes a penny doubled every single day. And by day 17, you know, he's at like $175. And then by day 30, he's at over $1 million. And by day 31, he's at like $5 or $10 million. The point is compounded interest. But the reason I tell the story is because we know that this business can compound. We know that this business can grow 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do we appreciate, right? We know that it can grow 3, 6, 9, 27, 81. But here's what's so important is that it grows because of consistency in input. The person who makes an invitation a day for a year is going to go farther than the person that makes invitations at random. The person that reads the books every day for a year is going to go farther than the person that hypes on YouTube once on Saturday night. And the way it goes is this, is that if you double the penny every single day, then of course we know on day 31, you're at $10 million. But a penny doubled every other day for 31 days is less than $200. And this business works exactly the same. So if we're sitting here today and we're saying, hey, we've been here for a year. Hey, we want to, you know, be in a completely different position a year from now. And you're starting to look at and you're practicing your skills. And then you're going to say, okay, how often am I willing to apply these skills? Am I willing to apply them 6 days a week? You know, and it's like, what if that was the tiniest change that it actually took? Is that instead of Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or instead of Monday, Tuesday, and whenever, it was just Monday through Saturday, week in, week out, and 52 weeks from now, you were 365% better. And just like Kevin's describing, is that even though the result today in his fitness, or even though his result today is not exactly where he wants to be, the work that's behind us was meaningful work. So it's just changing those couple of degrees now to get a totally different result in 1 month, in 2 months, in 3 months, and 4 months, because we have a great track record. The company's been shipping product. The company's been paying checks. This group has been together. Each and every one of us have irons in the fire. And it's just a matter of tightening up and figuring out those couple of key things that we all do together, so that all of a sudden in 3 months, it's, you know, 6-pack abs overnight. But it won't be overnight. It'll be 15 months, 18 months, 24 months in the making. But people will look at it and say, wow, that thing blew up. What are you guys doing? And so that's what I have to say. You know, take some time this week as your internal mindset, skills, action. Think about where you need to improve. I'm doing the same thing. Kevin's doing the same thing. And we'll see you after Thanksgiving, and happy holiday for everybody that's going to be celebrating.